All right, so Arab-Israeli conflict. We're going to go over most of the notes today so that we don't have many notes tomorrow. And then we'll kind of just keep it moving with some classwork. So here we go. All right, I'll give you a minute here. All right, so we'll begin by saying that this issue is really, really complicated for a number of reasons, okay? The first thing we need to do is we need to differentiate between religion and ethnicity, okay? This is very much an ethnic issue that has then kind of spilled over into a religious issue, and I'll explain what we mean here. The descendants of the Hebrew tribe, ethnic Jews, called what we now refer to as Israel their home for a really, really long time. And we could go all the way back into the Old Testament of the Bible and the times of, say, Egypt, for example, and look at kind of the enslavement of Jews and the removal of Jews from their homeland in what's called Canaan. If you remember the story of Moses and the Exodus, the Exodus is the second book of the Bible, and this is the story of Moses leading the Jews out of Egypt, and he parts the Red Sea, famously, as the story goes. And what he's doing is he's leading the Jews back to what's called Canaan, which is the old school historical name for the land of Israel. Okay, fine. So the ethnicity of the people that live there, by and large, is Arab. Okay, they are of Arab ethnic descent, and that's kind of the story there. For a variety of reasons, Jews experience what's called the diaspora, which is kind of the dispersion of ethnic Jews across the world outside of Israel. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is like enslavement, like you saw during the course of Egypt's kingdom. Once you get to the Roman Empire, Jews will famously face a lot of persecution, and they are dispersed for a variety of reasons during the time of the Roman Empire also, in the, before and after the year zero. So the diaspora of Jews is well documented. But the people that have inhabited this place, especially once you get up to the year 600 or so, have always been Arab, and their religion that goes kind of hand in hand with that ethnic group is Islam. So from the year 600, once you get around 600, once you get the advent of Islam, the ethnic and religious roots of the people that inhabit this particular area are Arab Muslims. Okay, fine. So Jews have now been dispersed across the globe all over the place, and the people that are living in this particular area are Arab Muslims. They control the Holy Land, quote unquote, and that's pretty much the way it stays. Now you can fast forward in time into kind of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, however you want to refer to it, until you get to the Crusades, where the Christians basically launch a military campaign to retake the Holy Land from the Muslims. They are unsuccessful, and the Crusades come to an end pretty shortly thereafter, prior to the year 1400 or so. So from the year 1400 or so, the Christians have been turned away, and the area is under the political and religious control of the Islamic Empire and the Arab world. Okay, fine. So fast forward all the way until the 1800s, and then in the late 1800s, you get the beginning of what's called the Zionist movement. Zion is famously the tallest peak in Israel. So that's where this name comes from. But this guy, Theodor Herzl, starts voicing his opinion about the creation of a Jewish state in what is present-day Israel. He looks all the way back in time and sees that Jews traditionally have called this place home, and that they should be able to go back there and establish a home again, as it once was way, way back in the day. Herzl's ideas and this idea of the creation of a Jewish state in present-day Israel are known as Zionism. So that's the first important vocab word that we get. The next important kind of milestone in this particular issue is what's called the Balfour Declaration. This is a statement by the British government in 1917 that suggests that there should be a homeland for Jewish people. Anti-Semitism is well documented throughout history. Usually, when we think about European anti-Semitism, we think about Nazi Germany and things like that. But suffice it to say, anti-Semitism throughout Europe had been an issue long before World War II was even a thought in anybody's mind. The Jews have faced kind of persecution since the beginning of the written word. So the Balfour Declaration is important because this is the first time we actually get an established government that is sponsoring this idea. It's not just some guy. It's not just Theodore Herzl. Now you got what is at the time the most powerful nation in the world kind of advocating for the creation of a Jewish homeland. You have to understand, let's contextualize. This is the time of the British Empire. They are the most powerful country. They have all these territories all over the place. So they're kind of the world leader, and they're starting to say stuff like this. So this is kind of a monumental occasion. And then the next important kind of tidbit, next important piece of this puzzle is World War II after the Holocaust. After the Holocaust, all the Jews that were lucky enough to be freed from concentration camps and come out of hiding after the end of the Third Reich, they're all essentially aimlessly wandering the land and homeless. Even the establishment of new governments throughout Europe, including Germany, many of them are not particularly friendly to the Jews. And the issue that's going to pop up is something that was reflected in our Do Now. And this is the idea that no matter where they go, if they are just dispersed into other places, they will always be the minority, and they will never have the opportunity to kind of self-determine their own kind of course of history. So instead of being kind of under the thumb of other ethnic and religious majorities in other territories, the idea is that they should have their own land where they can determine their own governments, their own social, political, and economic policies, and they could exist autonomously the same as any other country would. The United States is in favor of this, and they support this idea, and they spearhead the establishment of a Jewish state in Israel in 1948, and voila, the country of Israel is born. This will forever tie the United States and Israel together. So politically speaking, the United States and Israel are these kind of inseparable allies. There have been a few instances throughout history where the United States and Israel have kind of had differences of opinion about certain things, but for the most part, Israel and the U.S. are kind of hand in glove as far as international relationships go. So this is that alliance piece that comes into play here. So now this is where we're left with our issue. The people that have been living there since, forever are Muslim and they're Arab. But now we have this movement that is started by Herzl and echoed by the British government in the form of the Balfour Declaration. And then you get the United States establishing Israel, and now all of a sudden we have a serious situation. Now you have two groups of people who are calling the same piece of land home. And the problem here is that this is the Holy Land, okay? So it's not like one of these groups would be happy to just establish their home in another part of the world, because there is no other part of the world that is the Holy Land. There is only one of these places. And that's part of the problem also. All right, I'll give you a second. All right, so while you finish up here, this dynamic that exists in Israel is going to be fuel for many critics of the United States. Let's put it that way. For example, a lot of extremist like terrorist groups Islamic terrorist groups, for example, will point to the United States' role in the creation of Israel as a reason why the United States is kind of in the wrong. They will say that the United States has essentially sponsored the persecution and forcible removal of Arab Muslims from a land that is traditionally theirs in favor of placing the Jews there. And that is their complaint against the United States. They will claim that the United States is kind of intervening to displace Arab Muslims, and that's a big part of what's going on. So this conflict is going to influence many kind of events and relationships on a global level. Some of it in formalized kind of state to state diplomatic issues, but other parts of this is really about religious extremism on both sides, that kind of points to this circumstance as kind of the catalyst for disagreement and conflict. So we're going to start by kind of looking at the geography of the region, both physical and human geography. We're going to look at the history of the territory, which I kind of went over a little bit, and the creation of the state of Israel, for starters. All right, last slide. So aside from just kind of international tension, there will actually be warfare between these two sides. Arab is an ethnicity, so it's not like you can point to one particular country. So the Arab world, led by, at least represented by a few different countries, including Jordan, Syria, Egypt, most notably, will kind of take up the mantle for the Arab world and fight wars against the established Israeli government and country. And it will come in the form of these armed conflicts: the Suez War, the Yom Kippur War, and the Six-Day War. The Suez should be a familiar term for you guys. I know it's been kind of a topic in the news that a ship got stuck in the Suez Canal recently. You guys have heard that, yeah? So that particular part of the world, and the Suez Canal itself, is a really, really huge strategic kind of piece of geography. So we will go over that also. So all of that in due time. I'm just trying to get all the notes out of the way today. This way we can kind of just run through the classwork here.